players, and it's not the match we thought it would be. We are instead watching. There we go. There's the right match. Brendan Patrick versus David Rood.
Sorry, all of you Matt Rogers fans. I think we just gave you all a nice little heart attack. But we'll be over there if we have time. But we're going to be following Brendan Patrick and David Rood. This is a big match for David Rood as well. He was talking to me before this. He really, really wants to win this to get one of those coveted PTIs to make sure that he can make all of the Pro Tours this year that he wants to go to.
So much on the line in these early stages of Flesh and Blood's competitive life. And I love that we're seeing these two top players with the two top decks. This is what we came for. And you know these players are so practiced in this matchup. And look, I bet if you ask these players, both of them think they have an edge in this matchup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, but it's going to be close. They're not going to say, oh, I've got like a 70-30.
Absolutely.
It's going to be like, I've got a 55-60, 40 kind of thing going on. And I think it's going to come down to who draws a little better and who plays a little better in those really, really tight spots.
It almost always does in Flesh and Blood. It's a matchup that it's a game that rewards matchup knowledge. You need to know exactly what your plan is, as we saw last round, which is a masterful performance by Michael Hamilton, shifting to the fatigue role. Also, Michael Hamilton playing to win it in this round, it looks like, so might see more of him. But it's all about how am I attacking this matchup? And you see one of the adaptations the Bravo decks have made. They've gotten more action points into their deck. You see Lead the Charge going to go ahead and allow Winter's Wail to challenge that Shimmers of Silver.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of attacking, here's one of the ways that the Bravo deck attacks a ton, but it's not going to actually come into play yet this turn. It looks like Deaver just wanted the card out of his hand.
Okay, yeah. Sure. That's a completely reasonable thing to do in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful sleeves over here on Deaver's side. He's going to arsenal up, draw up, and pass back over to Brendan. Brendan with an empty board, not where he wants to be with Prism, but, he's got an arsenal here. Maybe set up some stuff, get some stuff into his soul. Let's see if he's get that Aura Train going, or if he's got one of those Herald attack plan early hands, because he's going to be kind of set to with whatever he draws.
Yeah, last time we saw Brendan in the feature match area, also very early on the Herald attack plan. Looks like, again, that's what we're going to start with, Herald with Go Again.
I think this is a Herald of Protection. And we talked about this earlier. Brendan's deck, a little bit harder for us on the spotting because of all the alternate art and beautiful cards, but yeah, that does look like a full art Herald of Protection for us here.
Yeah, these Heralds often function as just kind of speed bumps. They're designed to make the opponent uncomfortable. They're not really the way you're looking to win the game. You want to set up that Aura Train, you want to get wide, but you can't just let these Heralds go unchecked, because then they're going to load up Prism Soul. They're going to give you more flexibility in terms of deploying your yellow pitches, and that's so important.
Oh, absolutely. And I got to say this, the play this weekend overall, especially here on day 2, has been flawless, phenomenal, and just so much fun to watch. It's been some of the best games of Flesh and Blood I've ever seen. We're also seeing beautiful decks from our competitors. You can see the real people leaning into the collectability side of this, customizing their deck, making it personal with all the beautiful art. You and I were talking about how much we were enjoying this, and you got to love seeing that. Also, I like the pace of play here. Still playing fast, but very deliberate because they know what's on the line.
Absolutely.
Looks like an attack from a Spectral Seer here from Brendan. First blood here in this match. Looks like David Rood's going to go down to 39.
Yeah, I think also that that first Herald hit just haven't updated life totals yet, so we'll make sure those get squared away.
Yeah, it looks like a Pierce Reality is going to be added to Brendan Patrick's side here too. Yep, looks like we're going to be down to 34. Thank you, D-Rood. You know what? He's in our camp. He's a little on the grizzled veteran side. He's not used to having a touch screen to update his life total.
Newfangled technology. What is this?
All these kids these days, they're soft. All right, looks like we've got a Starvo activation here from D-Rood with an Arsenal here this turn. This could be a really, really big attack turn from him here. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, 2-card activation with that Pulse, so going to have some good stuff left over in the hand potentially.
Looks like he's debating on what he wants to actually pitch here this turn. It looks like it started to be a Break Ground. This is going to be the Lightning card instead. And that Break Ground is actually going to be the card's attacking. This looks like a 9-power dominated Go Again Break Ground. Brendan, what you got? And this is going at Brendan, too, for everybody at home. The Go Again is going to most likely power up some other attack to start taking down some of these auras that he's got. Looks like a Herald of Protection is going to jump in the front of the Break Ground here, block off 3 damage. So Brendan's going to go down to 35.
I want to talk a little bit about why that is, if I can, Tannen, for players who might be a little bit newer. The thing about attacking these auras with Spectra, if you go after them with a card that has Go Again, you're not going to benefit from that go again because the Spectra actually goes ahead and just kind of evaporates. And because it evaporates, the attack itself doesn't resolve. So an attack with go again into a Spectra aura will not actually grant you your additional attack. That's why you see players, they often go ahead and attack their opponent first, then they'll use their secondary attack to clean up an aura.
And that's why you see cards like Lead the Charge and
Right, Lead the Charge does not work the same way. It's an exception because it actually grants you an action point. That's very different from the attack itself having go again. You just have the action point stockpiled in this theoretical zone, and you're able to then turn that into an additional attack.
Speaking of an attack, this is a very, very big one here from Brendan. Now, this is just a 7-power attack. It does have an ability if it were to be destroyed, but there are no auras in play for it to copy.
So far. Now, you assume there may not be one, but there's a very critical combination here. You see Brendan's Fandel Spring Tunic ready to go. Could be a blue in hand, and it could be a 4-cost instant speed aura ready to go in the arsenal. You never know, and that makes D-Root's decision a little bit more complicated. Going to play it safe, just take the damage here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I've seen most players taking it here because they don't want to have that play.
It's a high-risk scenario for sure.
D-Root down to 27 here. A lot of early damage from Brendan Patrick, but in D-Root's corner here, there are no auras on the side of Brendan Patrick. He's had a very, very Herald-centric draw. So we have another activation Starvo, that pulse still hanging out in D-Root's hand. Still got that arsenal. He's got a Tunic up to 3, so he might be setting up for a big turn here into a 5-card turn next turn. Ooh, it looks like we might have a big attack here.
Yeah, a lot of cards lined up for pitching.
Including that pulse and the Tunic. Here we go. This is a Spinal Crush.
This is a big one. Of course, Spinal Crush, if it's able to do 4 more damage, it's going to take away go again from all actions. And this is how you check those Prism players. They want to do a lot of things in a turn, be it attack with a bunch of auras, play out multiple auras. They're never content with just sitting back doing one thing, kind of the opposite of the Starvo approach. Spinal Crush is a good way to prevent them from doing that. 11 go again dominate is no joke.
So Brendan consulting his hand. How does he want to do this? Does he want to block with a bunch of cards so he can have go again next turn? Does he want to just ignore this and maybe get in one big attack with a Herald next turn and be like, I don't even need go again? Lots of options for him here. Have to see how he wants to play this.
Yeah, you know, in these scenarios, sometimes you'll throw a lot of your equipment at this Spinal Crush to preserve your turn, but Skullcap isn't powered up right now. Brendan does have the life lead, so it's a little bit worse. Only has 1 block available. Phantasmal Footsteps is not something you want to utilize here. You do have those gauntlets, and these are usually a situation gauntlets step up. There you see Brendan reaching for them. Could also combine this with something like a Soul Shield to have a really effective block.
I'm glad that you said that. I was just about to bring up the point. We haven't seen a defensive reaction out of Brendan's deck yet. And
not yet.
From what we've seen from the Prism list this weekend, it seems like they lean pretty heavily into it in this matchup.
No, absolutely. And it's the Soul Shield, but also most of these decks playing some number of additional D-reacts. Brendan does have 2 unmovables ready to go. Do a little blocking from the defense reaction position as well. But we are going to see a Soul Shield here.
So first defensive reaction of the game. So it's going to block a 6, 2 from the gauntlets as well. I believe this was an 11-power attack.
Follow-up Winter's Well. All of this going face for D-Rood, which is a strong position to be in as the Bravo.
You've got to be feeling pretty good as a Bravo if this is the way the game's going for you, right?
I would say so. I think anytime that the auras aren't snowballing, you're doing your thing as Bravo. And D-Root hasn't really invested a lot of his best cards to be able to check things thus far. It's not like we're burning through time skippers or using our blinks. D-Root's going to be able to get wide as the game goes along and continue to challenge all those things. And you see, again, another Herald attack from Brendan. This has been kind of Brendan's MO early on in these matchups. I don't know how much of it is purposeful, how much is being shaped by the draws, but Brendan really just likes to kind of pick and choose spots and then find a moment to really go all in onto the aura plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe there's something going on here where Brendan switches over to the Herald play and gets the decks that have time skippers and lead the charge to try to make those cards less good.
It's interesting.
David Rood's back. Maybe there's something going on there. I'll have to ask him about it when we get some time here.
Yeah, look, Brendan puts in the reps. Brendan was on YouTube streaming all week, testing these Prism versus Starvo matchups, testing the mirror. He's got a plan for this matchup. Both these players have a plan for this matchup. That's what's so great about when we get to this stage of the tournament. These are players who have been beating these matchups all day. You don't get this far without having an edge as Bravo versus Prism or as Prism versus Bravo. So you put these 2 plans against each other and you see which comes out on top.
Speaking of a plan, I want to know what's in this arsenal for David Rood.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
Looks like another lead the charge here. And we're never going to find out.
Yeah, that's often the way the Arsenal goes over on the Bravo Star at the show side. Going to utilize that crown of seeds.
This is going to put a prevention shield up, so that worked in Herald swinging in for a little bit less here this turn. 2 resources still floating, so Rampart of the Ram's Head still available for David Rood here if he wants to bring in any of the other equipment. He's still got a few of those. He's got Crater Fist with 2 block on it here, and he's still got cards from his hand as well. Now, this isn't one of the Heralds that you absolutely have to block. This is an okay one, but this isn't like Herald of Air Edition.
You're right. That's the scary one.
So maybe still thinking about leaving his Crater Fist around for that block. He can kind of save a little bit of damage here with the Ram's Head and the Prevention Shield that's still floating around from that Crown of Seeds. It seems like he's just deciding whether he wants to. It looks like he's just going to take all of it but 1.
Yeah, that tells me that probably found something decent off that Crown of Seeds. Some kind of setup return turn.
This might be one of the reveal 3 cards, attack with the 4th card hand.
It could be. It could be.
Usually when they're trying to keep all 4 cards in their hand, it's something along those lines, or if they have to block them, the rest of the hand just doesn't function.
Yep, and Brennan just going to close out the turn with a Haze Bending. And now we're starting to see why D-Root is hanging on to some stuff. It's Awakening. We talked about this card all weekend. It's all over the place, whether players like it, they hate it. Important part of D-Root's plan versus these Prism decks.
And so this is interesting. So I know that from our testing in the ProQuest that we actually got to the point where we were taking out Awakening the matchups, and we were wondering, should we be playing 1 just to have the option
There's a school of players who think you never play less than 1.
Now, so here's the thing. A lot of people say you never play less than 1. Now, my friends and some of us were talking about, we went down to 0 in this matchup a few times, and do you want to talk about why Awakening is such a liability in this match? There's a specific card over in the Prism side that can give this card fits.
Yeah, Arclight Sentinel can just completely blow this up. Arclight Sentinel, of course, is one of the auras that, if it's in play, you are required to attack it. Comes down at instant speed, so it can really, really mess up these Awakening turns. Like if Brendan draws it here, you'll almost certainly see it deployed because there is a step in priority where those Seismic Surges pop, and that's where you have the opportunity to go ahead, play that Arclight Sentinel, and really just blunt whatever your opponent is attempting to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So when those Seismic Surge tokens happen, when they trigger, the combat chain opens. You're into the combat chain, so that it allows you the chance to play the Arclight Sentinel before the attack, when normally you wouldn't have that option. So we'll see, is that, that's always going to be in the back of your mind when you're the Bravo player. Also, drawing Awakening when the Herald plan is coming out of Brendan Patrick's deck, that's a good one too, because generally you're a little ahead on life and if there's not this many auras in play. So it looks like there's going to be that Spinal Crush.
Yep, we've determined this is the important card in the matchup, able to utilize all 5 of those Seismic Surge tokens. It's so funny how Seismic Surge's role has changed in these Guardian decks. It used to be you were always all about producing them with your tectonic plating as Bravo prior to this new version of Bravo.
I do love that, like how you say that, because in the past they were the afterthought. Yeah, you're making them, but the real reason you were doing it was to get certain cards in your pitch zone.
It was that, and it was just a small bit of value along the way, right? It made
Every
your
now and
Crippling
then,
Crush
yeah.
a little bit cheaper. If you got to play it for 6 as opposed to 7, that was a really nice deal. Now it's just like, I'll make 42 Seismic Surge tokens.
And you're about to take 35. So it does look like we're going to get a non-Arclight Sentinel turn. This is a block from a Wartune Herald on the Spinal Crush. This is going to get through a lot of damage. The Spinal Crush is going to trigger this turn.
Yeah, that tells me Brennan just looking to do some kind of setup on the next turn. Probably deploy a large aura. Something like a Genesis could be good here. Winter's Rail just going to clean up that Haze Bending. But we do see Brennan reaching for the Feyendel Spring Tunic. Going to spend some of those resources and put down a Merciful Retribution. Going to get a ping on behalf of that Retribution.
Yeah, and so you see right here, Merciful Retribution, what it does is it gives all the aura cards that they deal 1 damage or arcane damage to a hero whenever they're done.
Yeah, we see some players actually have Null Rune in their deck on the Bravo side, specifically to answer Merciful Retribution. It can be a problem card.
Yeah, it's one of the couple. There's a few auras that speed up the clock, right? Usually you have like 1, 2, or 3 auras in play with the Spectral Shields. You attack for 1, 2, or 3. But Merciful Retribution, a few of the other ones, they really kind of double the clock almost in a lot of instances.
Yeah, Ode to Wrath, another one. Shimmers of Silver, also capable of accelerating the clock. There's just so many ways this Prism
that
deck
one's
challenges
exponential
you.
a little bit more. It's like, well, it's 1 the first time, 2 the second time. That one goes up.
So D-Root just going to work through a Pulverize here as a pitch. Use that Crown of Seeds. And Brendan's just going to Arsenal on the turn, like we said. Just doing a little bit of setup after having gotten hit with that Spinal Crush. Really didn't have a lot of options, but made the most out of the turn, I would say.
Yeah, Spring Tunic up to 2 here. Let's see, do we have a Starvo? Maybe a little cleanup here from Rood. Do we have a Starvo activation in the hand?
Just going to go ahead. Read Merciful Retribution. You see how careful the players are. Look, Rood knows what Merciful Retribution does. Brandon Patrick knows what a Seismic Surge token does. You still double check. You think about edge cases. You be very deliberate when you're playing at such high stakes.
I'm thinking about moments that I've had in my career where I'm playing in a big spot like this and I've had the win in my hand and it takes me a minute to get through it because I'm double, triple checking it, and I almost have to feel like I apologize to them. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry.
That's good TCG play. That's what you do.
Yes, if you're at a team event, you hey, this is right? I'm not missing something. Like, so it looks like the hammer is going to go after that Merciful Retribution.
Yeah, Retribution is the target. So a pretty limited turn here from Rood. You see over pitching, trying to freshen up the hand a little bit.
Yeah, you're allowed to do this in Flesh and Blood. If the first card you pitch isn't enough, you can pitch any amount on the second one. So what you're seeing Rood here is under pitched on the first one, even though the second one would have paid for it fully by itself, but he doesn't want this card in his hand. He wants to cycle through his deck a little bit more. A nice little thing that people do, super practice in the game. This is a thing you can pick up yourself, use at home, maybe get a card deeper in your Bravo deck, start finding those cards that are really, really important. Keep you a little more in these games.
I actually think it's an underutilized
strategic
option at this point, and I think you can do more with it, and I think as players get better, we'll see more and more of that.
Yeah, you and I were joking about this earlier about popping Crater Fist with an extra ice card to keep Channel Lake Frigid around for the extra card for no value.
Yep. No, it's a play I've made many times.
I'm not above it.
There's things like Shock Charmers where you can just load up and get a lot of your hand filtered through. You can use it almost as a mulligan type scenario if you just want to filter through the Shock Charmers a lot. So.
Looks like Brennan's getting a little frustrated possibly here. We're going to attack for a Spectral Seal. Maybe not super happy with the way this game's going, the way his hand's going.
Yeah, I mean, we're just not seeing a lot from Brendan thus far. It's like an aura here, an aura there, but hasn't really gotten that explosive turn together yet. And again, I can't really quite piece together why. I think it's just been like a very Herald heavy draw.
No good mixture. It's one way or the other, it seems.
And that's fine. You see, you're staying at parity with that kind of like Herald focus draw, and that's fine. If you can stay at parity, you're good. You just worry about how efficiently Bravo can seize control of the game. I'd say the same thing on the Prism side, though. It only takes a few turns before they can really start moving things in their favor.
Seeds activation here for Rood. That's going to put a Prevention Shield up. He's going to go ahead and make that Ram's Head active as well. Looks like we've got a block here.
Going to follow up a Retribution attack.
Looks like we've got a Pierce Reality here to follow up.
So slowly getting a little wider is Brendan Patrick.
Yep, Rood down to 21. We're going into his Spring Tunic turn, going up to 3. Is this a Starvo hand? I see an ice card. Yep, it does look like a Star of the Show hand. And we think we have a red Break Ground here behind us, because I think the last card in his hand is a Pulse. So none of the big flashy attacks, it seems like here, but just one of the big deal a ton of damage attacks.
Yeah, assume you'll send one attack face. Like we said, you want to preserve that go again by not going after the auras first. So get a little pressure, and then probably use the Winner's Wail to go ahead and clean up a little bit, maybe get that Merciful Retribution off the battlefield. It depends. Like I said before, you would assume that, you just go after the most expensive aura. You always want to challenge the Merciful Retribution, the Genesis. Not always the case. Sometimes these zero-cost auras can be extremely impactful, and that's why they've really just changed the way this Prism deck plays.
Yep, looks like a Flash is going to get pitched here. This Break Ground, and like you said, we got to assume this is going after Brennan, but Rood's going to take the time to think about it here. Can't really afford to make any missteps here.
And
it does look like
after Retribution. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting spot.
I think he wants to make sure that he doesn't fall behind here. If he goes attack face, kill one of the auras, and then Brendan has another aura from his hand or from his arsenal, then he's going to fall too far behind. Maybe Rood just playing it really close to the vest here. Yeah, he's just going to clean up a lot of stuff.
Two auras being cleaned up by Rood. Now, I think the problem is Rood may have run afoul of exactly what we were speaking about before. You can't do that. That's the whole issue, is once you go after that Merciful Retribution, you lose go again. And we got rewound. That's exactly what happened. And
He did it with such confidence that you and I just
right,
completely forgot about it.
I was on board for a moment, and then I thought about it. And I'm like, wait a second. We just discussed this seconds ago. And I would be shocked if D-Rood doesn't know this interaction.
Oh, he 100% does. I think he just overthought it. Just something you and I do a lot in the booth.
Absolutely. And I do it in play, too. You're trying to track so many things at once where you are saying to yourself, all right, I have to do it this way, I have to do it this way. And then it comes time to make the play, and you do something a little bit backwards.
Looks like a War Tune Hero is going to be an attack here. Now it is getting pumped up by that Pierce Reality as well. See how D-Rood wants to play this turn. He does have an Arsenal, does have a 4-card hand, and that Tunic available to him. So Crown of Seeds really powerful here this turn. It looks like he's going to pitch for resources here. It looks like he's going to be using Crown plus possibly the Shield and a few other things here this turn. So maybe he's going to keep that Tunic fully charged here for a turn. We'll see. It's going to be a draw here. So we got a Prevention Shield of 1 up. Maybe trying to find a big attack to be able to block here.
I'll note that the really good Bravo players are very selective about when they take that 5-card hand. Just because they have access to the Tunic plus Crown of Seeds combination doesn't mean they're using it every time. They're finding a spot where they're really going to benefit from it.
Yeah, David's going to take a ton of damage here. It looks like this is going to come through. Maybe this hand is something he really, really wants to hold on to here. Possibly a big, powerful hand here. Maybe another copy of Awakening. I think I do see an Ice and a... Yeah, I think I see an Awakening in the hand.
I'm pretty confident there was an Awakening, yes. Yeah. I agree with you, Tannen.
Yeah. Looks like we had a couple more 1 powers coming through. I wonder if Brendan's catching on to this, but I mean, what else is he supposed to do? Not attack?
That's the squeeze of Awakening. You have to go ahead and force that damage through, but you know D-Rood's going to be able to come back with basically any attack he wants at this point. Now, the question I have, are you going to be able to combine it and get some of that Bravo Fusion spice on top of it?
Yeah, we'll see. Depending on his hand, I mean, if you don't have the Bravo fuse after this, you might be able to go after something like Oakenold and fuse an Oakenold. We'll have to see which one it is.
That
and
could
it looks
be powerful.
Does look like there's going to be an Awakening here. Yep, there we go. There's the Earth card, so it's going to double the amount of Cypher Search tokens that he has. Not that he's going to really need double, but we'll see.
And now you see why we chose to pitch as opposed to use the Fandel Spring Tunic to go ahead and get that Crown of Seeds going. And this is just a great setup for D-Rood. I have to assume we're going to go ahead and see a little bit of extra spice for this Pulverize. We already have 2 elemental types via that Pulse. Just takes a little lightning, and this is going to be a big turn from D-Rood.
I was actually interested to see if there was a second copy of Pulverize in his deck. Sometimes people go down to 1, and these kind of matches Pulverize another one that's not good to run into Arclight Sentinel. You can have like 1 as a good target for Awakening, but if we're going full Awakening you definitely want a bunch of these Pulverizes. So love seeing that from him. It's going to be a big attack. You see here the biggest attack in the game, and it's going to slow down that first attack from Brendan Patrick next turn, so maybe gain a little bit of life on the way back as well. So, all right, Combat Chain is opened.
There is our fusion.
Yeah, Bravo's going to fuse. Combat Chain is opened.
Oh, and here is the big play. This is what we talked about, 10, and this is how you're vulnerable if you go ahead and put all your eggs in this Awakening basket. That Arclight Sentinel can completely derail your plans, and Brendan Patrick had it exactly when he needed it. That's going to soak up a tremendous amount of damage here.
Oh, this is a big play from D-Rood here.
That's the counter.
Look at Brendan's reaction.
The shake of his head.
Wow.
And that means the Winter Whale is going to go ahead and use that first attack to clear the Arclight Sentinel, leaving those Seismic Surges ready and willing to juice up that Pulverize.
And the Seismic Surges, they go throughout the turn. The Hammer does not see it. Bravo's ability does not see it. So the Pulverize, this is still a fully powered Pulverize here. This is a 16-power dominated attack coming in at Brendan Patrick.
Wow, what a turn from both players. It seemed like Brendan had the trump and just got caught by the counter trump from D-Rood.
Brendan has no cards in his hand, right?
It sure doesn't look like it. I mean, it costs 6 to play that Arclight Sentinel.
What a turn.
Yeah, just completely blown out by D-Rood's blink here. And you see why such a dejected reaction after seeing what was coming. Trying to think, how do I mitigate some damage here? Am I looking to put my Skull Cap in front of it?
How good for David this turn, though, was the fact that when he reveals for Starvo, he didn't have to reveal the
it's
blink.
Everything. It's tremendous. This whole play doesn't work like that unless he's able to disguise exactly what the hand is made of. And, man, what a turn of events. What just top-notch play from D-Rood to set up that Awakening turn.
Yeah, Brennan down to 6. That first attack is going to be shrunk quite a bit here this turn. And he's still left over with an Arsenal after all this turn. He's still got that Tunic to 3.
Huge turn from D-Rood.
Yeah, he's set up to have the 5-card hand that we keep talking about all day long now
all right,
as well.
I'm back on Team Awakening in this matchup. That's it. You swung me, D-Rood. I'm very fickle, if you haven't noticed, Tannen. Whatever I saw last, that's what I care about.
Yeah, I was about to say, what have you done for me lately, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say, so in these matchups, I was not playing Rampart, I was not playing Awakening, and I realized that I just might have been wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I get stuff wrong literally all the time.
I called you the wrong name today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? You learn from it, you move on, and I'm learning that I still had a lot to learn about this Bravo versus Prison matchup. D-Rood putting on a clinic thus far. Oh, this one, that was a huge turn from D-Rood. This isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. Brendan still has 6 life to work with.
Now, this is a 5-card hand for him. Do we have the fusion? I see an Oakenolds. That's one card that's not.
I can't quite make out one of the cards in hand.
I think I see 2 Earth cards, so that's 3 cards that aren't more than 1.
Yeah, it looks like Evergreen, Autumn's Touch, Oakenold, maybe second Autumn's Touch.
Maybe second Oakenold?
I think you might be right, Tannen. Yeah. I think that's what we're looking at here.
So here's the question. Do you start attacking the face with generic damage here, or do you want to start cleaning up this board? But Brendan did just have a pretty weak turn.
Yeah, if I'm in D-Rood's seat, it's going to be really hard to have the discipline to not try and go after Brendan here.
Yeah, it does look like this is 7 pointed at the face for Brendan here. Brendan at 6. This means we're going to be getting multiple cards out of the hand. Now, he is at a lower life total.
Skullcap back on.
Yeah, Skullcap turned on here to be able to block for 2. The Tunic's at 1, so he's got a little extra resources here as well. Very important to know.
Let's talk about what's left for Brendan on his side. You see Passing Mirage. You see Pierce Reality. There is some good setups for a big Herald of Erudition turn. That's how I see Brendan getting out of this scenario. That's how I see him pulling ahead ultimately. If you can set up a Herald of Erudition turn, I think you're in a pretty good spot. Another card I want to talk about that we haven't seen a lot of today, Celestial Cataclysm. Look how loaded Brendan's soul is at this point. It's absolutely juiced up. And I don't know how many Celestial Cataclysms are in the list at this point. I don't know how many he has access to for this specific matchup. But if that's the way you're able to push a really big turn, that also seems appealing to me.
Oh, absolutely. No, we've seen him. Maybe he hasn't had as many opportunities as he wanted to, but he hasn't really been removing cards from his soul too much in this game. So maybe he's setting up for big Celestial Cataclysm turns. We'll have to see.
It's a good question. I mean, we could even talk about like a double Celestial Cataclysm turn should those be in the deck.
Now, there was a Soul Shield and a block with the Spectral Shield from Brendan there to block out all of the damage there from D-Rood. So not having to give in too much this turn. Now he's going to be able to get in a couple attacks here for D-Rood. D-Rood with an arsenal, though, so one of those attacks is going to get stymied by Crown of Seeds and get him some more filtering, because with Brendan at this low of a life total, domination on his attacks is everything.
Yep. Yeah, we've seen, I believe, 2 Soul Shields used already, so those are beat. Should be 1 more in the deck, should be 2 unmovables. I don't recall seeing either of those thus far, so they may still be available. But the options are getting slimmer for Brendan to play defense.
Taking his time with his turn, can't blame him. There's not going to be many more turns in this game. He's probably got a few options. Wants to make sure that he parses this out all correctly. Looks like they've got an attack for 1. Looks like D-Rood might have taken. Arclight Sentinel is being played here as well, along with the Tunic and a pitch of 2. So this is going to give him go again on his attacks as well this turn.
Yeah, and a little comfort as we head to the next turn, which I think is a big deal. You don't want to get absolutely wrecked by D-Rood's turn. Now, saying that, we just saw an Arclight Sentinel get absolutely destroyed by D-Rood. It could happen again. I mean, there's multiple ways for these decks to go ahead and challenge that. I don't know if we're going to see it here, though.
Yeah, no time skippers left over for D-Rood here as well. That's important to know.
Yep, absolutely. Looks like D-Rood really having to think about this attack, and it seems kind of innocuous, right? It's just an attack for 1. What are we really worried about? It's all about setting up the next turn. That's what you're always thinking about when you're trying to set up your defense in Flesh and Blood. What am I clapping back with? What am I filtering to the bottom of my deck? How am I manipulating my arsenal? All of those things are being considered by the best players.
I think a little bit of it, too, is what card am I pitching here?
Yeah. All of these things critical for advancing your game plan going forward.
It does look like he's going to just take some damage here.
More auras going to be getting in. All have go again due to that yellow pitch strip.
And let's see, is this last one going to get crowned? Maybe the no crown activation from D-Rood here. Down to 8, no crown activation.
That is interesting. That says this hand is already pretty good. And I wonder if we have another blink setup given D-Rood reading that Arclight Sentinel.
It's probably one of 2 things. It's either a blink setup Or he's got Starvo activation in his hand, but he can also attack the Heartless Sentinel while keeping the Starvo activation for the next turn, possibly.
Possibly. That's interesting. Just pitch one card, hold on, wait till the next turn. Yeah, I mean, it's not the most efficient use of resources, but looks like we're just going to see a Shock Striker come through.
I have never seen a Shock Striker attack out of this deck. This is one of the first times I've seen this.
Look, this is one of the things that's interesting about these Lightning cards. They're bad. They're just bad. That's all there is to it. But if you're able to use them well to get some value out of them, it's a really big deal. And we saw people playing like Red Lightning Surge alongside Blue Lightning Surge for a long time. D-Rood preferring Shock Strikers. It did the job there.
They're not there to be played most of the time, yeah. Nothing against those cards. When we say they're bad compared to the rest of the deck and what they're supposed to be doing, why they're in the deck. D-Rood still with that arsenal. 4-card hand here. We're back over to Brendan Patrick. This is a huge attack here from Brendan, who would be attacking for 9 with this first attack here. If this were to be defended and pops, he can copy one of his auras as well. It's a very, very dangerous attack for D-Rood to deal with here. One card from his hand can stop all of the damage here. But wait, I'm trying to remember. Is this one of the auras that stops Phantasm?
Yes, Passing Mirage.
Sure. I want to make sure I get that right for everybody home, that you cannot actually block with one card here and pop this, yeah.
Yep.
This card does have Phantasm. I mean, does not have Phantasm.
Yeah, there you see Passing Mirage. Right. First Illusionist attack each turn. Loses. Can't gain Phantasm. There's a reason you want to go ahead and send those Miraging Metamorphs out first. You see D-Rood lining up multiple blocks here because not going to be able to pop it.
Yeah, that's why you see Autumn's Touch blocking but not actually killing the Miraging Metamorph here. So it looks like we're going to have a block for 5.
And that means Brendan's going to have more options as the turn goes on. Still 2 cards in hand, I believe.
This game is tense, Brian.
It absolutely is. There's so much on the line for these players. You don't want to have to sweat tiebreakers. You want to punch your ticket to the top 8 right now with those PTIs on the line, with this huge season of professional play just getting started. These are such valuable PTIs.
And 2 attacks of 1 received from D-Rood here. It's going to be down to 2.
That tells me that D-Rood is looking to do something on this turn, and that Tunic's going to be ticking up to 3, ready to go. I wonder how big D-Rood's response is going to be here.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to see another card getting played from Brendan here, though. Another aura, maybe okay. Another attack, I think, would be very bad for D-Rood here.
Trying to make out D-Rood's hand. I can't quite parse the last few cards there. It is going to be an aura. Parable of Humility to close out the turn.
We're immediately going to make sure that attack. I believe D-Rood's at 2 right now. I don't think we've updated the life totals from the 2 attacks from the auras. Just so we have everything correct. There we go, down to 2.
Clean that up.
This Parable of Humility's attack is still happening.
Yeah, I mean, just given the presence of like Merciful Retribution and how that could swing the game, for D-Rood going this low, I just have to think there's a huge salvo coming on his turn.
His hand is going to be so good. Also, I really like this block as well. You're not going to be able to use the Spring Tunic again this game, so this is a block here.
Yeah, cashing in the Tunic here to not fall to 1. A little bit of protection against that Merciful Retribution that we mentioned.
I think this is a level up moment for a lot of players, is when they start to know when to block with their Spring Tunic late in games. And I've got to believe this is going to be a very yep, there we go. Bravo pushed up.
And I bet there's a big attack in that arsenal ready to go. Let's see.
Is this the power up pulse?
That may have been Pulse of Volthaven. Here's the pitch. Going to be Oaken Old, and that's going to be fused, dominate, +2 all over the place.
So this is an 11 power dominated Oaken Old, and he's still got go again with another attack behind this. And if that's the correct pulse, we might be able to pump up. I was going to say, I just missed what was over left in his hand.
Yeah, it would have to be Pulse plus blue if you're going to try and pump up the hammer. So I don't know if we're going to get that going, but this is still a massive attack. Looks like some confusion around this Crater Fist. We're going to get this sorted out.
Apparently the Crater Fist is still around.
All right, D-Rood wanted to give up on it a little early. Going to still have that Crater Fist ready to go. Dominate, go again. Big attack here from D-Rood.
This is actually, isn't this, oh, there's a Parable, so this is attack for 10. I got a little quick on me. So attack for 11, Parable Humility is in play. So it's attack for 10 coming at Brennan Patrick.
Yeah,
you can only block with 1 card from hand. Is there a defense reaction?
I think there's defensive options regardless. We still have a powered-up Skull Cap. We have the Tunic we can cash in. And we have Phantasmal Footsteps. So these things could be cashed in to try and get some defensive value.
Yeah, Skull Cap can block for 1. The Phantasmal Footsteps, like you're talking about, can still block.
You're right, Tannen. I'm sorry. Brendan does have the life total lead right now. That's very important. Very important difference.
Another reason David Rood might have taken some extra damage here last to make sure his life total is a little bit lower.
Oh, managing Skull Cap is so important.
I mean, that was one of the biggest things in the last format when we had those Briar mirrors.
Yep.
You know, we saw the national championship get decided on exactly that.
Absolutely. Yeah, not the same emphasis on Skull Cap in this format, but still just as powerful of a card, still just as important. It just maybe isn't as ubiquitous as it used to be.
Still one of those play generics of all time.
Yep. That and Faendal Spring Tunic, kind of the fearsome twosome atop the generic equipment game.
I got my own copies of these cards recently to kind of help, grow my collection so I could be playing more CC, and these were 2 of the first cards that I went after.
Very good decisions. I certainly would have went and purchased my Spring Tunic, but my good friends at LSS sent me some packs when I was just getting into the game. Cracked
and you
them
got
open.
one open?
Spring Tunic.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Whitelisted, baby.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure those were seeded packs.
They look sealed to me. I mean, maybe. I'm not going to say they weren't. They look very sealed.
They sent 1 pack to Dalen for Everfest, and he got a Skull Cap at his. I'm like, I get a pack, and I get random rares.
Yeah.
Come on, LSS.
My pack was also not impressive, but I have no right to complain given that Tunic that showed up.
For all the good they've done me and all the opportunities they give me, I actually have to say thank you. I'm definitely not complaining.
So this is it's the breaking point of this game. Like, look, there's almost no chance Brendan makes it through this turn with a setup hand, and there's a follow-up attack coming. So that's a real problem. It's hard to find a good defense here. And that's why you see Brendan just debating. The defense reaction would be huge. Anything else is going to leave some vulnerability.
Also, I mean, how big is it the fact that that Crater Fist is actually still around? That's an extra life point for D-Rood next turn and going to be attacked for 1 a bunch. So he's got the Ram's Head. He's got the Crater Fist. So the 3 that's showing right now is no longer lethal. He's got 2 attacks to take care of that plus the seeds. He can handle all 3 of those at once.
Showing good defensive options for sure.
That's what's going through Brendan's head right now. He might still be alive. I think Brendan would have conceded by now knowing he's dead. He's trying to figure out, what can I do besides survive? That's the big thing that's going on here.
Yeah, is there any return pressure to be offered? Is it just about survival? That's the thing, though. When you commit to survival, it can snowball on you.
It's the start of the end.
Yeah. So you always want to preserve those outs. Sometimes it's better to even, leave yourself a little bit more vulnerable to something else if you can just preserve some outs.
All right, looks like he's going to start by making a Spectral Shield, reveal a card from a soul.
Yeah, this is another option that Brendan has access to for sure. Has a loaded up soul. And that's why we saw such a long think, is that the options are very complicated here.
It looks like a block with a Herald from hand and with a Tunic. So it looks like that was a block for 5.
Yeah, I think 5 of this is going to be prevented. Brendan going to fall exactly to 1.
All right. There's still some go again here.
Impulsive Volt Haven. Pitch 3, come through with the hammer, and David Rood is going to lock up a top 8 berth.
Now, David Rood is locked. You can see the relief on his face down there in the corner. He's so happy right now just for that extra PTI. Brendan, he's going to have to pray. He's not completely out of this top 8 yet. He is 9-3. There's a chance that he's going to make it through with some breakers, but he's going to have to sit there, and he's going to have to wait to find out.
And you have to